Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Black Future Month Roundtable. This is the final installment of the month. It's been a powerful month going through the importance of health, the importance of education, the importance of building wealth within the Black community, and last but certainly not least, the importance of building strong, amazing families. I'm of the belief that creating a beautiful Black family is one of the most revolutionary things that you can do, right? And we're going to talk today about the state of Black love. We're going to talk about some things that we got wrong about Black love when we were younger, and we're going to talk about how we can build wealth within families as well. If this is your first time tuning into the channel or to Black Future Month, my name is Devon Travell, creator of Black Wall Street, the board game, and director of curriculum development for the Institute of Melanated Innovation. Real short on IMI, in case you don't know, we do provide access to Black Studies courses available for the world to consume. And we also serve as a think tank for the community in order to increase the quality of life for the African diaspora. If you're interested in learning more, definitely tap us. Go to www.imifoundation.com and y'all can learn more. All right. But I want to get into it. The first person I'm going to introduce and bring to the stage should be no stranger to y'all if you tapped in with Play Black Wall Street. All right, this is the queen. This is my better half. This is my complimentary half. Please welcome to the stage the queen.
Hey,
There
y'all.
she is.
Thank you for
All
that
right.
wonderful introduction.
Of course, of course. I'm gonna have you introduce yourself in a second, but I want to bring up our next guest up here, who also should be no stranger to the channel. We bring him and his queen on our podcast often, the M4 Show. And if you saw the thumbnail,
Hmm.
his team, I don't know exactly who on the team took the picture, but we use that picture all the time. One of the members of his team took our amazing picture that's in the thumbnail. The movie that is our wedding videography experience and the amazing photo album. Please welcome one of the co-founders of Palm Photography, Joe Powell.
Wow. What's good, family? What's good? Good to see you guys. I'm excited to be here today.
Oh, of course, we
Good.
appreciate you. And I don't want to ruin your what's it called, your sting, but today's a special day for you.
Today
Today's a
is a
special
special
day.
day. I was telling y'all that you picked the right day, man, to talk about love. Today is the actual anniversary for me and the wife. 22 years in the business, man. We've been doing it. We've been doing it, man.
Woo.
I love it.
Oh,
Congratulations.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Congratulations. So yeah, we need some of that wisdom. I know it's a continual learning process, but happy to have you on here to do some wisdom for us. All right.
Absolutely, man.
All right, so we're gonna jump into it. If you are watching live or you are watching in the future, definitely go ahead and leave a comment below. Let us know what city you're calling in from or you are watching in from, and if you have any questions, go ahead and ask. For me, I think growing up, there weren't a lot of ways to learn on what marriage was gonna look like, what marriage feels like, what does love feel like. I think we have the movies, we have our parents and our community, but there wasn't a space to really talk about this. So this is what we're trying to do with this roundtable, is provide a little bit of context for people that are currently married or aspiring to be married. So let's hop in with some introductions. If y'all don't mind giving a formal introduction of yourself, your brand or company, and one word you would use to describe love. And don't you say love. Let's see, who Queen, you want to go first?
sure. I'll go first. My name is Sinclair Walker. I am repping Play Black Wall Street as well as the M4 Show, the Melanated Married Millionaires in the Making show, as co-host with
Mhm.
Devon. One word I would use to describe love is, I don't know if this is the right word, but I'm gonna say like illogical.
Mhm.
Like it doesn't follow the same logic that a lot of other things do. Like if you love somebody, you love them. It doesn't always make sense, right? It doesn't always look pretty. It doesn't always like you don't always make the most logical decisions when it comes to love. So I will call it illogical,
There it
which
is.
I definitely would because I am a logical thinker. So sometimes I'll be like, why did you just do that? It's like, well, love. That's why.
Love. There it is. All right. If y'all think also love is illogical, go ahead and drop that inside the
I can
comments.
get with that, man. I can get with that. The heart wants what the heart wants, you know. So
Mm.
it's, there it is.
There it is.
Brother Powell, let us know who you are, the brand you're representing, your one word.
Absolutely. So thanks a lot again for having me on here. My name is Joel Powell. I am one half of the amazing team at Palm Photography. My wife and I, Carrie, she is the other half, the other principal owner. We are a, can I say luxury wedding brand? We are a luxury wedding brand that
Yes, you
does
can.
photo and cinema. I would say, man, one word to describe it, I'd probably have to go with unselfish. Love is unselfish.
That's good.
You got to spend a lot of time, and maybe we might get into it a little bit today, man. But you got to spend a lot of time, hopefully, trying to outgive each other, right? And if you're
Outgiving.
outgiving each other, that could be a benefit to your relationship. So hopefully, love, the kind of love you want to see, is an unselfish kind of love.
I love that. Unselfish, almost competitive on trying to
Right.
outgive one
Right.
another, right?
Yep.
And yeah,
Right.
100% luxury wedding photography.
I'll
Listen,
take that. I'm gonna take that.
I'm telling y'all got to check out it's on our other YouTube channel, the M4 show, but it's the Declare Wedding. Beautiful cinematography. The queen did a surprise dance with choreography. We were on a boat. There's some drone footage. It was just,
In
listen,
a Rolls Royce, is that what you got?
we had an old 1970 Rolls pull up and get, it was a whole vibe.
Y'all had one of the best weddings ever, man. We were just privileged to be there to capture it. So, and the thumbnail, man, KP took that shot, right? So
Maybe
that's when we got that shot. When we go to wedding shows, we always put that one up too, man. We love that shot.
Nice.
it's a
Nice.
money maker right there. All right, I want to switch gears. Well, not switch gears, but go to the next question. This might surprise y'all. All right, think about this one. What's something you got wrong or you misunderstood about love when you were younger? And this can be, because you were just young, because you didn't know. This can be because of the models that were around you. But what's something that you feel like you got wrong about love at a younger age?
Sinclair, you want to take that one first?
I'm still thinking. I'm still formulating. So if you have something, please.
I got you. I got you. I'll start with this, man. I think I really didn't know. Well, maybe two things, man. I'd say that first and foremost, I always thought that when you fall in love with somebody, that person becomes your person, and they're never, ever, ever gonna do anything that hurts you, right?
Mm,
Um, and come to find out, man, that the people who you're closest to are probably the ones who are gonna hurt you the most. Maybe not on purpose,
mm,
but they probably will hurt you, man, because they have the most access to the most intimate parts of who you are as a person. Um, so I had to really kind of come to the understanding that loving someone doesn't mean that they're never going to hurt you, but it does mean it's going to give you multiple opportunities to demonstrate what love looks like and what forgiveness looks like, and that's really what
yeah.
that's really what kind of, I don't know, for me, man, it helped me understand, which I didn't know as well. It helped me understand that love is not just a feeling, love is an action. And love contains all these different aspects of forgiveness and patience and kindness and unselfishness, all these different things, which are demonstrations of how our love should look. And like I said, when I was younger, man, I just didn't know. I was like, oh, I'm gonna fall in
Yeah.
love. This girl will love me. I'm gonna love her. We will never have no problems. And then the next thing you know, you're like, here come problems, right? You're like, wait,
Right.
whoa, whoa, whoa. what?
Yeah. That's really good. It's not that fairy tale where it's always going to be roses and
Right,
amazing dates and amazing trip. There's going to be some hard work in the
right,
love. That's
right.
good. Thank you. Sinclair, you got anything off top? You want me to go to first?
I do have something, and I'm going to say it just in case you take it, because I know you're better at thinking on the spot. You'll think it's something else.
Thanks.
I would say, and honestly, mine's more of maybe marriage, but I'm going to answer the question this way nonetheless. I feel like I grew up thinking like love and marriage is 50-50.
Mm,
where, you put in 50% of the effort, they put in 50% of the effort, and then somehow you have this big happy family. Without, of course, now I realize that love is 100 first of all when it comes
mm,
to like your efforts, right? But also even in terms of like how things are divided maybe amongst the household or in your relationship. It's 50-50 is an unrealistic, I think, expectation to have, that I'm going to be doing 50% of this, you're going to be doing 50% of that, because it's ever changing. And it's a sliding scale all the time, right? If I'm having a hard day, you may be doing more like 70% and vice versa, right? And it's about leaning on each other so that at the end of the day, yes, we feel like, our household is put together and that we can support each other in that way, but it's not 50-50. And I think that if you go into it with that mindset, it can be a little bit daunting, a little bit like, well, this is not what I signed up for. So I think that's something that I've now learned, that like it's not 50-50. That construct probably needs to like be just deconstructed there, right? It's about a constant give and take, and just making sure that I love what you said, Joel, at the beginning, like you are like out to giving each other, out supporting each other. Like that should be the focus. That should be the focus. What can I do to support my partner today? Because they're probably, if they're thinking the same thing, then y'all gonna be good.
You know what I'm starting to understand about love, Joel,
Tell me, man.
is
Tell me.
the longer you're married to somebody, the more thoughts you share.
You didn't say that, huh? That's why I
Yeah.
was like, let me
That's
say it now.
exactly what I was going to say. And I feel like, yeah, it's just very strange. I think when we first met, when me and Sinclair first met, we were not necessarily polar opposites, but I think our mindsets were very different around a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as we've been dating and we've been friends and we've been married for years, like our mindsets and things that come to our mind when a certain question comes up are like almost identical, and it's very interesting. Obviously we're privileged to spend a lot of time with each other, so that's something that I'm starting to understand about love. Is number one, my sweatpants are never my sweatpants, and number two, we share thoughts. But something that I misunderstood about love when I was younger, I concur with the queen. I thought it was 50-50, specifically economically 50-50. That's kind of how I was raised. I was raised in a household where at least from my perception as a child, the bills were paid 50-50, right? Mom would pay certain bills, dad would pay certain bills, vacations would be on one person, school uniforms might be paid by another person. Whereas I feel like in maybe that's a 2024 thing. I feel like that 50-50 is a little bit harder to do, especially when kids start getting into the mix and maybe one person's not working a full-time job anymore. How can you do that equitably? And then something else
That
I mentioned. Oh, you
I
jumping
just want to
in?
real quick pop in real quick, man, because one of the things when you mentioned right there about like seeing it as 50-50 in the household, I had a completely different experience when I was growing up. Like when I saw when I grew up, I pretty much thought like, oh, like pops is taking care of everything, right? Like
Mm,
mom's is taking care of the house, pops is going out to work. And so it's on my whole mindset. I had a very traditional mindset from my upbringing about like, oh, well, it's the man's job, man. You go out, you take care, you provide for your
mm,
family. And so that's 100% on you as a man. And then you figure out the rest, right? And so I think that's a pretty interesting dynamic, because in some cases we don't see it that way. My wife in a different situation, right? I mean, she grew up more or less where seemed like it was more like 50-50 kind of economically. So it's kind of, we all come from those different perspectives and different
yeah,
backgrounds, which kind of inform what our relationships end up looking like, man.
for
That's pretty
sure,
interesting.
It
for
is.
sure. And let's see, there was another one I want to talk about. So when I was also younger, I thought love was directly connected to, if not 95% physical,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think when you're a kid and all you see the love, and usually when there is love, there's also that physical encounter, and it's like, okay, well, whoever I'm just aesthetically and physically attracted to, whoever looks nice, clearly that's going to be love, right? And I think there's for sure some overlap in that, but I don't think it's a 100% correlation to people that you are aesthetically attracted to and people that you think are aesthetically pleasing are going to be the ones that actually love you and connect with you on a deep spiritual level for the next 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years. Like, I don't know how long you're gonna be married for. I know the pals over there, they're going for 78 for sure. Right, why not? Why not? But I think as as you age, you get older, I think you start to see that deeper connection of love past the physical into the spiritual, into the mind melting that y'all are doing, and it's a different type of experience. So that's something else I definitely got wrong as a youth. Okay.
Yeah.
We could take a quick swerve because we brought up gender roles, or we brought up roles specifically, and I was going to talk about that later, but I think we're here now, so I want to remix it. In 2024, are roles slash gender roles still important in an intimate relationship? Right? We talked about, the man 100% pays the bills, and that was a traditional mindset at one point. Is that still important today? Has it shifted? What are folks' thoughts on that?
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Of course.
When you say intimate relationship, what exactly do you mean? Do you just mean in a marriage, or do you mean physically? Like what exactly do you mean there?
Fabulous question. So, not everybody is going to have the opportunity to be married, or not everybody will have the choice of being married, but maybe they do want to be in a committed, intimate relationship for long periods of time. So I put intimate relationship as an umbrella term because I know marriage is very kind of specific, but this
Okay.
is a
In a relationship,
in a long-term committed relationship with each other. Are roles important?
Gotcha. Then I think yes, roles are important, right? Gender roles are not important, but roles, in my opinion, are important. And that's for you to decide between the two of you. We have in our household, we have decided like, okay, I have the final decision-making power on certain aspects of our lives, and Devon has the final decision-making power on other aspects of our lives. Those are our roles. I like to drive. Devon, not so much. So I drive. That's my role, right? It has nothing to do with the fact that I'm a woman. I just like to drive. I'm kind of a speed demon, so I'll get us there quickly, but also
She likes
safely.
to drive quickly.
But also safely. You never added the last part there, but also safely. So like those are the roles that we have decided. I like to cook. Devon, not so much. So I do the cooking. Not because I'm a woman, because I like to cook, right? So I think it's just about deciding what are those roles in your households, because if everybody's trying to do everything, nothing's going to get done. I think it's the same way in a business, right? There are roles for a reason. You have the CEO, you have the CFO, you have the COO. You can't just have a bunch of people that say we're leadership and expect for things to work efficiently. So I think that, your relationship, your household logistically needs to have some types of roles set up. Again, that's completely up to each individual, couple to decide for themselves. I don't think it's up to anybody to decide or to tell you what your role is, even like financially or anything like that. So I think it is for each individual couple to decide from themselves. But I do think that roles are important for a longevity of a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I got to agree with that 100%. I mean, for us, and let me just maybe add on the slight little caveat. I think that it kind of like what Sinclair said, it depends upon the couple and the foundations that they build their relationship and their lives upon. So for me and my family, for example, like we're followers of Christ. And so because of that, we have aspects of our life that we build upon some of those principles, right? Some of those biblical principles. And sometimes, and again, that's just us. That's just us. It could be everyone's situation is a little bit different. Everyone's situation is going to be a little bit different. But having some form of roles and what those roles look like in your marriage, I think, is absolutely important, because it helps to bring a degree of harmony and order, which makes things flow a little bit better in your marriage and in your family. And sometimes people can get pushed. Here's the thing: sometimes people can get. It can make some people feel some certain kind of ways, right? People can feel some kind of way about it. Like my wife and I will go to functions sometimes, and she'll go ahead and she'll like baby, I'm gonna grab you a plate, or what do you want on your plate or whatever.
Mhm.
And then, you know, some of our friends like, are you making his plate? Are you making his plate? And then she's like, yeah, I'm making his plate. Like, why are you doing that? She's like, because I love him and that's my man. And that's what I want to do for him. Right. It's not like he's commanding me to go make his plate. I just want to do that for him. Same thing like when we're out, like if we're out together, she never pumps gas. She never opens her own door. Like, I'm gonna do that stuff for her. It's like, why are you doing that for? Because that's my woman. I want to take care of her. Like that's what I want to do. Right. And so I think some people look at those actions that we take, and sometimes it feels like, it may feel to some people like, oh, you're doing something or you're acting in a role that you don't have to. It's like, yeah, no, I don't have to do that, but I want to do that. And it helps to bring a structure and an order and some harmony to our relationship and to our marriage. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with roles in 2024. I think we should have roles. How you define those roles for your marriage is up to you individually. I agree with that.
Yeah, I love it. And I think I'm in the same alignment with y'all. I do think that roles are very important. But a follow-up question is, how do you change or shift the roles as the marriage change and adapts, right? Because I think the relationship's gonna look very different in 2000 than it is in 2024 and 2045, and the expectations may shift, the times may shift. So I don't know if y'all have an experience where maybe you had a set agreement with your significant other, like, hey, these are our roles, this is what you're gonna do, this is what I'm gonna do. And then after 22 years, not to get specific, things change. Right. And it's like, all right, this no longer works for me. Like, before, I used to do X, Y, and Z, and that was cool back then, but now I really can't do that. So how about, can you do this and I do that? Like, how do you have those types of conversations?
Well, I know for us, man, we try and be, so everyone always say communication is key in a marriage, but that's not, I mean, it's a cliche, but it's 100% true. You got to find ways to communicate and communicate effectively in your marriage. And so for us, um, like, I'll give you a perfect example. When we first got married,
Mm.
uh, my thought was I was going to try to emulate the same kind of structure that my parents had when it came to doing bills, right? I'm like, we're
Mm.
gonna sit down, we're gonna do a budget together, we're gonna do the bills together, we're gonna pay them together, we're gonna do all this stuff, right? And I was like, we're gonna have one joint account and that's it, and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And so I found out that um, my skill set as it relates to financial management was probably a little bit more developed than my wife's skill set around financial management, right? When
Mm.
we first got married. And so once I found that out, I was like, all right, we gonna switch it up. Like, you go sit over there. I'm gonna take care of the bills, right? Like, I'm gonna take care of this,
Right.
and then we're gonna be good. As time has progressed, right, and she's become, you know, far more skilled in that area as well. Now the role about like how we do bills and budgets and stuff like that has changed. Like, we're all in it together. You know, she's the one saying, oh, you know, have you considered this? You know, let's make this financial move. What about that investment? Blah blah blah. And it's like,
Nice.
oh, okay, cool, right? So it's a little bit different because there's been some evolution and some development over time. And I think that is just kind of part of the process. I think it's okay to see roles change over time, especially if you're talking about building brand new skills, having that kind of development in your own personal growth. All those things will help to kind of shift and change. And I think we got to be fluid enough to know that we're not going to be the exact same people that we were when we first started out, right? We're going to
Right.
grow and shift and change. And so we should want to see those roles kind of evolve, hopefully over time.
Yeah. Love it. Queen, anything you would add to that, as far as if folks are in a marriage and they feel like roles are shifting, but they haven't had that chance to communicate, sit down, talk with each other? Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think it is important to have like a check-in, like some type of check-in where, because when life is lifing, it's hard to like have these conversations, right? And I think that's where things maybe start to go awry, is like without a set time to sit down without distractions and to have these conversations, it does make it hard to have that communication. So I think it is important to like set aside a time, maybe every year. Like it doesn't have to be something that you're doing every day or every week. Like maybe a couple of times a year, right? Whatever that's going to be, whatever works for you and your schedule, your household, right? But maybe every year on your anniversary, right? Maybe that's something. Maybe that's a part of the discussions over dinner or something like that. Like, hey, how you doing? Like, how are you feeling with the balance? Devon is really good about just checking in randomly. Like, we'll be sitting at lunch and he's like, so how are you feeling about like the roles? How are you feeling, spiritually? So I feel like we get that check in quite often. But if you don't have a Devon who just likes to ask random questions, right, it might be good to kind of build that check in into your schedule. So maybe it's a vacation that you guys can go on, once a year to just eliminate some of the distractions and actually get to have that communication, that conversation. Maybe it's just a lunch, right? Let's just go to lunch. Let's talk about how we're feeling. But I do think it is important to have that conversation because, like you said, life is changing. So to establish roles and expect for those roles to stay exactly the same for the entirety of your relationship, I think is unrealistic. To kind of give another very realistic example that happened for us is when I was working my full-time job with another company, right? I was at that time the breadwinner in terms of like making the most money in between the two of us. And so it made sense for me to pay the mortgage. And then he would cover basically everything else, right? That made sense. And that was how we divided up the roles. Then in 2021, right, if y'all know the story, I quit my full-time job. So at that point, it doesn't make sense for the mortgage to be on me anymore, right? We need to reevaluate things. So now we have a joint account where the mortgage is paid out of that we both contribute to, right? So we have to make those shifts. And it's funny to, there's so many similarities between what you're saying, Joel, and your relationship and ours. I don't pump gas. I have had the same situation of making Devon's plate and have someone come up to me and being like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, I'm just making his plate. I'm not. He didn't ask me to do this. I asked him if he wants some food. He said, "Yeah." I'm making a plate, so I'm making his plate. Like it's not a thing. I know he would have done the same thing for me if I was having a conversation and he was making food. Like that's just the dynamic of our relationship. So don't pay no mind to what other people think about your roles, but it is important to establish them and make sure that you're keeping up and making sure that they're agile. The role should be agile as things change, as you have kids, as as parents get older. Like all of these roles, all these things can shift within a relationship. So yeah.
Really good, really good. And yeah, Joel, back in the day, she was making that engineering money. It was coming through. Them checks was looking good. And then she was like, "Yeah, no, I'm done. I can't do this anymore." I was like, "Oh, come on now." But yeah, that was a really good shift. And I think that shift and allowing you to leap started with like a conversation. Like, how are you feeling right now? Like we're going through a global pandemic. Your job hours shifted, your responsibilities increased, you got a huge promotion, and like outside looking in, it was looking really good, but the inside was like, nah, this is not balanced. Like, King, this is not working out for me right now.
And I think that check-in, right, allowed us to make some strategic moves, right? Because after that, we said, okay, definitely want to prioritize, your mental health, allow you to quit your job, but we probably should downsize, right? Because the stress of holding this mortgage is just going to add more pressure onto the situation. So we were able to take that check-in, make some moves, and we were able to downsize, save up for the house that we currently have. So everything happened for a reason, but who knows what would have happened if we didn't have that check-in and I didn't communicate how I was feeling, still working the job. Who knows where we would have been right now.
Right, right. So as I like to make sure that we're giving some type of practical steps as for the folks that are listening. If you're listening and watching again now or in the future, drop any type of questions in the comments. We would love to engage with you all, whether you're currently married, aspiring married, maybe you've been through a couple marriages. Definitely make sure you drop those comments or questions inside the chat for us. But I want to encourage folks to do a check-in, right? Even if you don't think anything is wrong at all, that's the perfect time, right? Just say, how you feeling? How you doing? How am I doing as a husband? How am I doing as a wife? Like, what do you need more from me? Or if there's tension, right? And maybe sometimes when there's tension, you're afraid to ask because you don't know what that answer might be. They might say, I'm doing terrible. This is not working for me. And you're afraid of that response. That's the most important time to ask. right? You need to release that tension as soon as possible and get to the root of the issue so that y'all can continue to grow together. So highly encourage y'all today, do a check-in with your significant other and just see how things are going. All right.
You know what, man, real quick on that too. The wife and I, we got a brand new routine that we started doing over the last year or so, man. But the check-in and the communication is critical. And so part of that for us, well, I should say this. It's easy, sometimes folks will be like, how you doing? You good? You straight? And that's pretty much the check-in, right? Like, are you straight? You good? and because sometimes we don't even know how to ask how someone is doing, right? And like to really check in with them. And so the wife and I, we started doing a little routine where like right in the morning, man, I'll ask her like, and we have this series of questions. I'll ask her, I said, tell me what went well yesterday. Tell me what went terrible for you yesterday. And then I'll ask her what she's excited about for today. And I'll ask her what she's anxious about, right? And all those things help me understand a little bit more about what she's dealing with, what's going on with her. It even gives me an ability to know how to pray for her in some cases, right? So it's like you got to have those check-ins. Now, however you want to do it, you figure it out, right? But you got to have some touch point with the person that you're with, man, so that you can understand what's going on in their life. Because in many cases, folks are dealing with stuff and they don't know how to express. In some cases, they don't know how to express what they're dealing with, and they want to be able to tell their significant other, but they don't know how to tell their significant other because all this stuff about, well, how are they going to feel about it? Are they going to judge me? Is it going to cause a problem? All those insecurities end up just driving kind of our relationship and our communication to a point where it's kind of, it's a lot of atrophy in it, right? So I'm 100% on the check-in, right? Figure out a way. I'm not here to tell you how to do it, but figure out a way to check in, man. For real.
Needed.
Yeah.
And speaking of a check-in, I want to do a check-in on the entire state of Black love. So from y'all perspective, where you sit, how would you describe the state of Black love today? Right? If you were to describe it, if you were to give it a score, like what would Black love look like today from your perspective? I see the Rock from Sinclair. Oh, Joe's not happy. Go ahead, Joe. Go in. I see you. You ready?
I struggle with this question, man. The state of Black love. So I'm going to say this. I'm going to say Black love is suffering from an image problem. I think it's suffering from an image problem. And I would say that because we have these still, even in 2024, we've got these consistent narratives about there's no good Black men, or the wildly persistent narrative about the difficult, loud, and attitudinal Black woman, right? And so all of these narratives, right, they do a disservice in my opinion to the idea of Black love, because they're overgeneralizations, they're hyperbolic, and it, and specifically, again, let me be very, very clear. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with interracial relationships. I'm just saying if we're talking specifically about Black love, then what I'm saying though is that image problem, what it does is it perpetuates the damage that's being caused, right? Because now what I'm doing is I'm looking at my particular spouse or my particular significant other, or a person who could be potentially a significant other, with a negative lens, and that's problematic, man, because that narrative will start to shut down individuals and shut down potential relationships. And I think, this is my own personal opinion, I think that there is, unfortunately, but it's the truth, right? There's kind of an inherent struggle that exists in the Black community, for a variety of reasons, and sometimes the best people positioned to help you understand that struggle and process that struggle are people who look like you. And so when you have these negative views of people who look like you, your relationship is not going to thrive in those cases, right? And so it becomes really, really challenging, man. So I think right now there's an image problem. We're perpetuating narratives that may not necessarily be true, and that's causing a lot of, I would say, just a level of there's a disconnect right now, man.
Got it. So we need a Black Love rebranding campaign.
Absolutely.
Is what I'm
Absolutely.
hearing.
And y'all two are the spokespeople, man. So y'all gonna start the whole campaign for us and rebrand it for us, man.
Listen, that's a lot of pressure on two people, but we can be a part of the
Facing you,
process.
man. I know you can do it.
You got the cameras, so it's gonna be a 1-2 combo
Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen.
for sure. Queen, anything you wanna add to that state of Black love from your perspective?
It's so hard for me to like put it up, like sum it up in like one sentence because I have just so many different thoughts. I think it's evolving. I think it's always evolving, but I think especially right now I see it evolving because I do see that on one hand, I think that there is I think it's somewhat, it's not fully there, but I think it's somewhat becoming cool to, to have like for a Black man to have a Black queen by his side, right? I think it's becoming, which I think is part of the solution, honestly. Is that it's now becoming a thing to have, Black love power couple type of thing, which I think is important because in order to and again, same thing with Joel, not speaking down on any other type of relationship, but I think in order to, if you believe in Black love, if you want to support Black love, if you want to be in that relationship, I think it is important for young folks to be able to see examples of Black love. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that there are enough examples out there in popular culture, because especially with the widespread social media and so much like celebrity out there, like with of course, like the athletes, the entertainers, but also just the TikTokers, right? The YouTubers, right? There's so much celebrity out there that people look up to. And so I think there needs to be consistent examples of strong Black couples. And I think this is where I struggle because yes, I think that it is becoming cool, but I also am noticing more. And again, maybe it's just social media and I'm just noticing it now because I'm married, but I feel like a lot of the strong, like Black power couples, they're breaking up, they're divorcing. Like I feel like every week it's somebody different, and I think that can also start to, which is reality, right? That's reality that not every relationship is built to last. But I think it also can do something for young minds who are, if they have this thought process or this idea, this pedestal of Black love, to see it also kind of being dismantled at this very public way. And I'm honestly, what I'm thinking of right now is like, I don't follow the shade room, but I do go to the shade room when I need the tea. And they always put up like the picture of the two people and they draw like a red line in between them. Right. And I think even that is like that image of like, yep, these two people, remember this happy couple, remember this perfect picture of Black love? Nope, just kidding, not existing anymore. And so I think even that is like, what is that training the youth to believe? So those are just some of my thoughts. I wish I could put it into a more coherent, like, this is what I think, but I think it is evolving to where, I do see it more represented, I think, than I used to, but I also see some of these really strong couples, they're going through real life things in a very public stage. And I think it makes people start to be like, well, if they can't make it, then why try? Like, we're all doomed. So yeah, I think it's a mixed bag.
I also have a mixed bag because I think we were privileged. We went to UC Davis. We have a certain group of people. And I think when I look at my circle, Black love is popping. Right. When I look at my friend group, my mentors, there's a lot of good examples younger than us and older than us around us that are exemplifying Black love. So I think in my small sample size, Black love is popping. But and then when I look on social media, when I look at some other like dating and relationship podcast, Black love seems like it's looking for the bag or looking for the glamour of the love, and or what can she or what can he do for me, and all the talk about, oh, if you're a high value man, then you need this. If you're a high value woman, you need this. And it seems like it's about getting the most out of someone instead of giving the most, like Joel said earlier. So I really think that, I don't know if it's like that capitalist culture of America. I feel like it's starting to really bleed into what love looks like in 2024, not just for the Black community. I feel like we're seeing that across multiple cultures. I don't think that's necessarily specific to us. I just think we're popping on social media, so we might see it more often. Um, but that's what I think.
Yeah.
And I did a little bit of research to pull in some data because I did want to actually get some numbers to see, is Black love improving or is it decreasing over time? So before I reveal the numbers, what do y'all think? A 50-year trend, do you think marriage and Black love is increasing or decreasing over the past 50 years?
I'm gonna go decreasing, man.
Yeah,
Mm.
wait. I would want to say increasing, but I'm also thinking about 50 years ago, what the culture was like. I'm like, I don't know.
Right. I want to say increasing, but I'm thinking it's decreasing.
Decreasing. All right. If y'all watching live or in the future, go ahead and drop decreasing or increasing in the chat. Let's see. So marriage rates. Here we go. In the 1960s, 61% of Black adults were married compared to 32%
Mm.
in 2008. So it seems like it's decreasing by almost 50% less Black adults are getting married.
Hmm.
Right. I want to let that sink in for a second because I think that's pretty significant. That means that there's far more households with one income. That means that there's far more households with possibly single parents instead of dual parents. Right. There's far more households that might not be able to afford a home because there's only one income, especially in California. Right. So that's a big one. And then I have one more data point for y'all. Oop, no, that's not it. Boom. In the 1970s, 35.6% slash 27.7% of Black men slash women were never married. All right, so we'll walk through that quickly. That means 35% of Black men were never married, 27% of Black women were never married, compared to in 2020, 51% of Black men have never been married, and 47% of Black women have never been married. Right. So again, to y'all point, I think your gut was right. Over the past 50, 60 years, despite an increase in freedom, availability, travel, civil rights, all of the wins that we've definitely gotten as a community over the last 50 years, for some reason we're loving less and we're
Question.
marrying less. Yes.
Is this is simply for marriage? So this would not be including folks who are together but not married.
Correct. This does not include that. So this is from the Census Bureau. So they only have marriage. They may have had domestic partners in there. I could do some further research if people are classified as domestic partners. But no, if they're just in a long-term relationship and haven't put any paperwork to it, it wasn't counted in this statistic.
I have another question that hopefully doesn't send us down. Well, maybe if it does, it does. How much do you think the perception of the institution of marriage affects those stats?
I do think it is playing a role. I don't think it's the only variable in the 50% reduction of marriages, though.
Mm.
Right. I think there's something else going on there. Like a 50% reduction since the 1960s. I don't think is just about the institution. I feel like there's some more possibly like trauma response that's in there. Maybe we need to do some self-healing, some self-loving in order to be able to find love. Maybe it is social media and the fact that we can see so many different things online. So in our opinions, there's endless options. So why would I get married when I have endless options? I think it could be similar to the economic trend that we saw with Black Wall Streets across America. As soon as you can integrate, you choose to integrate instead of staying in Black community. So I think that can also be an option. The availability of so many other choices outside of the Black community that you're going elsewhere. But yeah, I don't think it's just the institution of marriage and the possible negative connotation.
Yeah, true. Yeah, those stats are not looking good.
Not looking good. So we gotta do something, right? This is why we're having this roundtable. We're trying to bring this conversation to the forefront because if you don't know something's a problem, you can't solve it,
Hmm.
right? Similar to in relationships in a marriage, we have to sit down and say, "Hey, Queen, how you doing? Right? What's going on?" we got to do the same thing with the entire state of Black love. Black love, what's going on, y'all? How we doing? What can we do better? All right. So appreciate that. Anything else y'all want to talk about there before we shift a little bit to the money bag, the wealth bag?
Well,
Y'all just stunned.
real quick. I did want to ask kind of a question on top of Sinclair's question, which is what exactly do we think is the cause of those decreases? Like, what if we can't? I mean, can we put a label to it? Like, what's causing the decrease in terms of marriage?
Yeah. So there were several factors that came up in research. All right. So one of the factors was incarceration rates increasing. So we know that 1960s was like right before the war on drugs, right before the war on marijuana. So I think it was not pre, because it was still happening, but it was kind of pre that huge boom in the prison industrial complex for Black males specifically. Number two was economics, and it was saying how there's a high rate of unemployment within Black men, and that Black women are one of the most accelerating groups of people getting executive jobs and high paying jobs. So to the Queen's point, like we were coming out of college, and we were both privileged to go to college. She landed her engineering job right out of college. Listen, Joel, making bank. I landed my education job. Making education money. And I think in a typical relationship, that dynamic of your queen, your partner making twice as much as you, it can probably feel a bit different. I think luckily for us, we had been friends for so long, we had known each other for so long, so it didn't impact us the same way that if I had met her at a random bar, at a random restaurant, and there was that huge gap, I think it would have been a different experience on both sides. I think that's the typical experience that people may be having. You have this, strong Black queen who's an executive, who's an engineer, making the six figures, making the 80,000, and then you have someone who's working manual jobs, working a part-time job, hustling, not making that money. And there's a economic gap there. So those were the main two factors that were shown in the research. Sinclair?
That was actually something that came to my mind as you were explaining, looking at the stats and explaining them, is like I was wondering how much the Black women, saying that we're like the most educated demographic. I don't know if that's still true, but they were saying that a couple of years ago, that we were like the most educated demographic of all of them. And I imagine if you're more educated, you may be landing those higher paying jobs, and that type of thing. Like I was wondering how much that was playing a role. But to your point, if for Black men, unemployment is higher, and then for Black women, again, the education, those higher paying jobs is higher, that is a little bit of a discrepancy.
Yeah.
And so it could be that, again, some of these Black women are getting to their bag, right, and trying to find a mate that's somewhere equal or above them, right, because that's, again, kind of the stigma that we're born to believe that's how it should be.
Yeah.
And maybe not being able to find those people, just because statistically, there might not be as many available. And so if you're looking for that Black man who's, again, meets these requirements, and again, I think pop culture has something to do with that, because there's all these rappers talking about broke men don't deserve nothing, right? So I think like those subtle things start to get to you. So I think that could be I guess closing the you could be closing off people that you could have a legitimate connection with for something that's maybe a little bit I don't want to say superficial, because it does make a difference, right? I guess with what type of lifestyle you're gonna have. But yeah, it's hard because, like you said, like we met as broke college students, and we grew as broke college students until we were able to build the wealth together. So I feel like it's a little bit of a different scenario. I can't say that we were in that scenario, so it's hard for me to know what it would be like me now, like going out into the world and trying to find a partner. Like, who would I be looking
into the
for?
streets?
Into the streets. I don't know. I don't know what that would look like, and like what type of standards I would be looking for. How much would money play a role? Like, I haven't thought about that, luckily, because I have my partner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what you thinking, Joel?
No, I love everything. I just I'm just, I guess for me, I'm resonating with this idea of uh, not everything you guys have said about economics and of course about incarceration rates. All those things are important. I'm also thinking about um, do people want to actually do the work that is required in a marriage, right? Um, we've been privileged to shoot hundreds and hundreds of weddings, man. And the one thing I always tell brides and grooms, whether they're young or old, anyone who listen, I just kind of like, tell them and say, look, man, this is not a sprint, man. It's a marathon, bro. It's a for real marathon. Like you got to have that marathon speed and that marathon stamina. This ain't. You can't have that Sha'Carri Richardson kind of speed. You can't have that, Ryan Benjamin. I mean, that's cool. That's cool to get you out the blocks, but I mean, you got to have that staying power, man. And a lot of folks, from what we've seen, I mean, in some cases, it's just that you focus so heavily on getting with the person and wanting to be with them. And then when you actually get into a long-term relationship or you get into a marriage, you start finding out that there's so many other different aspects that you hadn't considered about what a long-term relationship looks like. A lot of folks just feel like this ain't what I signed up for. Like what Sinclair said earlier, like this is not what I signed up for, right? And it's like I want out, and I want out as quickly as I possibly can. Um, and so I think for Black love, you got to just understand. It's like, look, man, it might look a little different than what you have anticipated, but if you're trying to build something, if you're trying to grow something, which is why I love the both of you so much, and the fact that you guys built something together, man, that requires a marathon mindset where you're like, I'm gonna stick with this, and we're gonna build it together, and we're gonna make it work. And so sometimes I just think about change. If we can find a way to help change that mindset, get away from the sprinter mindset as it relates to relationships. Like, it's a marathon mindset, man, and not in a bad way either, right? It's not negative to have a marathon mindset when it comes to this, right? We're gonna build things. Maybe it's gonna build a little slowly, but we're gonna build it. And by the time we get to where we want it to be, and we look back, we're gonna look at just this edifice, this monument of our love and our economics and our family that we've built together. And there's something that's powerful about that, man.
I love it. I love it. And what was coming to my mind when you were talking is movies and how they represent love is we only see the process of falling in love,
Mhm.
right? Okay, I meet somebody, I get their contact information, we go on a date, I do some grand gesture, they fall in love, maybe there's a little bit of drama, I gotta win them back, we get married, it's done.
Right.
Right? And I don't think there's enough movies, and what's coming to mind is maybe the Why Did I Get Married series, but I don't think there's enough movies that show the ups and downs of the marriage, right? After the movie, where's the sequels? Where are the part 2, part 3, part 4 on how the relationship changes after the honeymoon, how the relationship changes after the first child, how the relationship changes when someone loses their job. Like we need more movies and TV shows that I think show the full roller coaster of marriage and not just that honeymoon stage and not just that first liftoff of the roller coaster.
Right.
And I think to your point, I feel like usually in movies, if there's tension within a relationship, that's usually what catapults the character to go find a new love, right? And then it starts this new love story, which again I think is perpetuating this like idea that that's what you're supposed to do. Right? This isn't working, so I'm supposed to go find my Prince Charming because clearly this ain't it, right? And really that really that's just a part of marriage, right? It's these little battles in the war, right? Or I don't let me not call it. I
It
guess
can be
love
a
is
war of love.
War
Listen,
of Love. Yeah.
it can be
I
the
was like,
war of
wait,
love.
that's bad. But War of Love, right? Or a marathon, right? When you're running a marathon, and I can't speak from experience, Devon, tap in here. I imagine, and even hearing you explain it, like it's a series of little battles, right? At first, it's just like, okay, let me find my place here within the race. Like, let me get a steady pace. Okay, man, like my blood sugar's low. I need some sugar. Like, okay, it's hot out here. Like, it's these little battles that you continue to fight over this long, hours long marathon. Crazy. But yeah, I think that even that perception of love in the movies is not entirely helpful because again, you only get to see this snippet. It's really about the chase. And then again, if something goes bad, that's usually what catapults this new love journey or whatever. So I think it is important to show realistic, battles that you go through with marriage and what healthy communication and healthy kind of working through those issues can look like. But that may not be as entertaining as, as folks want, but I think it's still very helpful and still needed out
Exactly.
there.
Yeah.
Exactly. So if you're just tuning in, we're having a very intentional, powerful conversation around Black love and the state of Black love. If you have any questions, definitely feel free to drop them down in the comments. And if you have a favorite movie that you feel represents Black love very well, go ahead and drop that down inside the comments for us as well. I do want to shift us to the second core part of this conversation, of this roundtable, and that is the intersection of Black love and building generational wealth, and how those two kind of work together. So, in your opinion, is the overall state of Black love connected to the overall state of Black wealth? Or are these two things completely separate? All right, because we had our conversation about Black wealth last week. Was that last week? Yeah, last
Yeah.
week. Where we went through some data, and I will share some of that data as well after y'all give your initial gut reactions. And wealth within America, we're seeing, is starting to increase for Black Americans, but there's still a significant gap. So a significant wealth gap between what white Americans are earning and their wealth as compared to Black Americans, Latinx Americans. So from y'all opinion, Black love, Black wealth, is there a connection, or are they separate?
I think it depends
Mhm.
on the person and on the couple. And of course, I also feel like it's hard for me to remove my own bias because we do so much work on building wealth. Our circle looks like other people who are also doing the same thing, who are married and building wealth. So in my real life experience, if I were to say like, oh yeah, they seem to be connected because a lot of the people around me are on that same wavelength. But I and I do think that even like on social media, I do see a lot of representation of powerful Black couples that are about building generational wealth, and whether through real estate or entrepreneurship or stocks or all these different things. So I do think that there is a movement of Black love, or Black couples, Black families creating generational wealth for their future generations. I don't think that they necessarily always go together, though. um, I think that definitely is more of an individualized thing, if that's important to you. I don't think that generational wealth is important to everybody. Not everybody has that mindset. Some folks are here for a good time, not a long time, and they're kind of the kids will worry about their own kind of futures, and that's everybody has the right to their own mindset and opinion. But I think that it's not necessarily like synonymous, Black love and generational wealth.
Got it.
Yeah,
Got
I
it.
would agree. I would agree with that. I think that in many cases, we don't connect the two, or the two have not been historically connected. And a lot of that, I think, stems back from the fact that in many instances, as Black couples, there wasn't a conversation around wealth creation, or how we even utilize wealth, because there wasn't a lot of wealth to begin with, right? And so these larger conversations that we're having right now, um, I think that makes a huge difference in terms of trying to connect Black love and Black wealth together, because then you start seeing that there is an overlap between growing something together and how that love gets
Exactly.
reflected in how you guys are actually working as a unit, right? To build that financial wealth, to build some level of economic stability. But it, from what I've seen, this is all anecdotal, man, but from what I've seen in many cases, there's just not a lot of conversation between Black couples as it relates to wealth, right? It's more about, do you have a job? Is your job enough to pay the bills? Cool. And that's the extent of the conversation, right? Like, we're not looking down the road and asking about, like, well, let's talk about investments. What about stocks? What about Roth IRAs? So what are we looking like for retirement? How's that pension? Like, we're not thinking about things like that. Let's talk about purchasing properties. Like, we're not looking at those kinds of things, and we traditionally have not. which is why I love the space that you all are creating, because you're giving people that opportunity to start having those real conversations and to start saying, let's connect the relationship that we have to the financial outcomes that we can create as a unit. And so if we can have more of those conversations, I think we'd be in a good spot. But I agree with Sinclair, man. Like, I don't think that's traditionally been part of the conversation, but we got to normalize it and make it part of the conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed. I agree with that last statement. I disagree that black love and black wealth are not connected. I think the state of black love, as we saw with the stats, is not in a good, healthy state. And I think in response to that state of black love not being healthy, the state of black wealth is also not in a healthy state. And I think the more that we can get folks to think of the longevity of having a partner, think of the longevity of being in love with a partner, building with a partner, the more they'll also get into the mindset of, let me build wealth with this partner, let me build wealth for my kids. I think it's a mindset shift that's connected in both. I feel like over the years, as America and as Black Americans, we've gotten more individualistic, more what can I do for me, and that's been translated in how we show up in relationships, and that's been translated in how we show up in generating wealth. When we look at Black Wall Street, like, families were at the core of Black Wall Street, right? Families that were starting businesses together, families that were buying houses together, families that were building together. That's, I think, at the foundation of Black Wall Street. So to get back to that, I think families need to be at the forefront today in 2024. And as we build up the Black family, I think Black wealth will kind of come as a domino effect. Right.
What about, let me ask you this question. What about the idea of planning? Because I think in many cases, and I just would love to hear your opinion on it, both you and Sinclair, man. In many cases, it just feels like there is no plan, right? We just we got married, we're together, we'll figure it out, right? We're gonna figure it out. And we just gonna figure it out. We're gonna figure it out. Sure, we got you, we're gonna figure it out. It's like, okay, that's cool that we're gonna figure it out, but what's wrong with having a plan? Like, how many, I mean, y'all are probably different, and because of the circles you hang out with, right? But if you think outside those circles, how many of those people that are in relationships, how many of them have a financial planner? How many of them have ever sat down and said, what does the future look like? What can we build together, right? So what is that important, do you think? That's my question. Is that important for Black love and Black families to say, hey, let's have a plan as to where we want to go and how we're going to get there?
Queen, would you like to go first or second?
I'll go first.
Mm-hmm.
Let me steal all the points. Start thinking of your backups. So the thought of going into something like marriage without a plan sounds crazy to me, but I'm also a planner. So I have a plan for everything. But I think, to your point, planning takes a state of not being in survival mode, not being in, paycheck to paycheck. So I feel like, unfortunately, there's a lot of folks out there that I think don't have the mental capacity of thinking about, where do I want to be in 20 years? Because they're like, I need to make sure that I'm good next week, right? I need to make sure that I can get food on the table to my kids next week. So I think that it does kind of tie to this Black wealth conversation, right? Because if you never have the conversations and make a plan, you may never get out of that situation. So it's I think it's hard. So I think that's playing a role. But I do think that there are folks out there that they kind of go with the motions, if you will, of like, okay, I meet this person, we fall in love. After about 4 or 5 years, people start to ask you, when are you going to get married? So we get married, right? Because that's what you're supposed to do after being together for so long, without being very intentional about, like, okay, now that am I supposed to marry you, right? Do we make sense as a couple? But also, what does the future look like? And I think because we have always had those conversations, I kind of assume that other people do too. But I think, to your point, like, it's probably not the norm for folks to be having those conversations about, like, where do you where do you want to be when you're 40, when you're 50? Like we kind of reverse engineered our entire lives because we used to talk so much when we were in college, when we were right out of college about like, man, where would you like to be when you're 40, 50, 60? Like, I'm like, I want to travel the world. I want to work when I want to. I don't want to have to work. Like, I want to be just with my kids, you know, going around visiting them. Like, and then we were reverse engineered that backwards. So I feel like that has very much worked for us. And I think that that's a good place to start for a lot of folks. Is it can feel overwhelming. Like, again, when you're in the thick of it, like we got all these bills, we got this mortgage, we got rent, we got kids, we got jobs. I think that's a good place to start. Like, where do you want to be, right? And then reverse engineer it to what steps could you be taking now to get to where you want to be. But I think planning is a pivotal part of any venture, right? And I think a marriage is a lifelong venture that you sign up for. So I think you definitely need a plan, and it's never too late to start your plan, in my opinion, right? I think it's like, okay, you got married 5 years ago, 7 years ago. It's not like, oh, well, we didn't have a plan, so we're just going to figure it out. Start the plan now, right? Even if you're married for 35 years, like start the plan now if you don't have one. I think it's never too late.
100%. So what we do through the M4 show, and if y'all are listening and you're currently married or you're aspiring, dreaming of being married one day, definitely make sure y'all tap in. It's the M4, the number 4 show.com. A lot of great content on there. But we do once a year, we have a mastermind where we invite couples to go through goals, and they'll literally plan out what are the priorities over the next couple years. Our last one that we had folks come over our house, and a particular couple, they're like, we want to buy a house, we want to grow our business, and they had one more goal that I'm not remembering. But we're all in a group chat together, and like they put inside the group chat, we just bought our house, y'all. They put inside the group chat, we just got our license to do this business, y'all. And it's like, y'all said that 4 months ago. You said you wanted a house, and you did it, right? So I think there's so much power in planning, because once you plan it, now you can actually achieve and go after those dreams. So we do that once a year. Encourage y'all to either come through, tap in with us at the M4 show, so you can join us virtually or in person, or just do your own version of it. During this experience, we also have people do their love languages. We have them do their personality types. So you get to learn more of who you are, get to learn more of who your partner is. That way you can plan accordingly. Something else that we used to do, and I want to bring it back. We used to have like paint and sip nights where we would paint our vision of the future, or we would make a vision board for our marriage and our family. And again, that's just an informal way of us envisioning what the future can look like, more generally. And then going to the very specific, we do have a financial planner, which we've been working with for the past maybe year and a half, 2 years at this point. Of course, we have folks that support us with our real estate. My dad is a huge person that supports me in the retirement, the 401k, the Roth. Like, I have deep conversations, hour-long conversations with my dad on like retirement planning, which has been hugely helpful. Like, just being exposed to those things and him saying, man, if I can go back to when I was 25, I would have did this, right? Speaking as a 50-year-old, it's like, okay, well, I'm 24. I'm not 25 anymore, but I'm 25 now. So let me go ahead and make that move that you wish you could have done now, and then I'll reap the benefits.
Right.
So yeah, planning, crucial. Queen.
Yeah. Can I add one more thing? I think it's even more important to plan today in 2024, because I think our perception of doing okay in life and being like middle class is shifting. And I think like for our parents, our grandparents' generation, like you could have one job, per household and still be able to buy a house and still be able to like, live a decent life. Whereas like today, like that's very hard. So I feel like
in California.
In California, sorry. Preface that we live in Southern California. So I feel like if you live in Southern California, you have to have a plan to make your money grow. Otherwise, it's like the middle class is like, again, slowly shrinking. You can mess around and find yourself in, in another class just by doing the same thing, just because things are shifting. Inflation is crazy, right? Real estate is crazy. And so I think that it takes more money to be okay and to be middle class and to be just living your life without having, finances be a stressful part of your life. It takes more money to do that, right? I think in LA now, like you need to be making over $100,000 just to be okay. And that is crazy, like to think about. Again, think about like our parents' generation, our grandparents' generation, like how much money they had to make to be able to buy a house for $5,000, or those types of things. So I feel like with the state of the economy and where things are going, you have to plan ahead. Otherwise, I think it's going to be very hard to be okay, honestly. Like to be able to pay your bills without worrying about where the next month paycheck is coming from, to be able to take a vacation every once in a while. Like I think all of those things now take that extra level of planning, that investment. It takes a side hustle, right? Especially in California, like you have to be intentional about those things. Otherwise, yeah, you could just find yourself left behind in this economy.
Yes, ma'am. All right. So I want to show a little bit of data, and I got two last questions for y'all around building wealth. And this chart I showed last week at our Black Wealth conversation, but it kind of shows you a graph that breaks down where wealth is coming from for different demographic groups. And as you can see, for the Black community, you see right there in the middle, the largest kind of chunk of data is coming from housing value and equity. All right. So I think it was about 19.1% of Black family wealth comes from the home ownership. And then it was about 5.9% coming from business equity, less than 2% coming from the stock market, and negative 1% in liquid assets. All right. So again, showing that home ownership, huge part of Black wealth. And if in California it's getting more and more unrealistic for you to buy a house, especially with one income, that's going to dramatically impact the wealth. Right. And if you're not getting that executive job where they offer a 401k and you don't even have the opportunity to get that free 4% match or 3% match from the corporation, that's going to widen the gap as well. Okay. So based on that, I wanted to bring this question to y'all's household. Can you share high level how your family plans to build generational wealth? If there is a tactical or practical strategy that you're employing that you can give to another family that's watching this, what would it be?
Well, for us, man, first part about it is making sure that there's a clear understanding in our family. At least we do in our family. Make sure there's a clear understanding that nobody gets to where they want to get to by themselves. Everybody has help, and it's just in terms of how you manage that assistance, and making wise and sound decisions. In some cases, being willing to sacrifice a little bit in order to sacrifice right now for future gratification. Right, we're a society that's so bent on just the instant gratification. And so it's, just kind of training our family and training our kids and helping them understand that a sacrifice now could be a benefit down the road. And um, so building that first kind of like just intentional mindset and foundational structure is the first step. And then the kind of like the practical aspects though, that we're primarily focused on is looking at just, real estate acquisition. So like when just the graphic you brought up, man, about home ownership, like we're fortunate to own multiple properties. My brother and I actually have a couple properties that we work with and manage even out of state. And so that's just been a benefit for us, man. We know that there's money in property here in California. There's money in property in general, man. And so we've been just trying to make wise decisions as a family unit and as a kind of an extended family unit in terms of purchasing certain properties in different areas, ensuring that we're leveraging those properties the way we need to, whether that's pulling money out, whether that's investing, whether that's turning it into rental property, whatever the case may be, but just leveraging it as we need to, and then sharing those strategies and that approach with our kids and helping them build that as well. So my son just actually bought his first home in
Come on, and how old is he?
24. He's 24. Bought his first home in December, right? So last year. So we're we're just trying to, build that structure, man. And so, and then replicate it, and helping our kids replicate that structure, helping our family replicate that structure. And so that's kind of like the high level of where we're at. I know we don't have time to get into the weeds, but that's kind of what we're doing.
Oh yeah, I love it. I want to amplify two core strategies that I heard. Number one, the core one was real estate, right? We're investing in real estate. But number two was it wasn't just you and the queen, right? It was you. You said your brother, your
Yeah.
son, and it's a full family venture coming together to build wealth. And I think that's a huge lesson for people to understand is you don't have to build wealth by yourself.
Yeah.
Bring the family in, bring your friends in, bring your children in, and figure out how you all can learn together and invest together. So I really love that.
Yeah. And I think it's especially important because it's one thing to just build wealth to give your children or grandchildren a lump sum of money, right? But if they don't know what to do with it, we'll be right back to where was a couple generations ago. So I think the education, the mindset, like you said, along with the wealth is important, right? This is how we think about money, right? It's a cooperative thing. You don't do it alone. And I think the mindset of us is like we always do what we can to help the future generations, right? And I think to your point, the sacrifice, right? I think that's important. Like whenever we get money right now, we're putting it away for the most part. Like, we realize that yes, we could go spend it and blow it on a vacation, which is probably what I would end up doing if I was in charge of money, which you can see I'm not. But it is important because we're in this building stage that we're putting away as much as we can, because that is our mindset, is like, again, doing what we can for the future generations, setting them up so that each generation is just climbing a little bit higher, right? And so I think that that's important to not only build the wealth, but also build the values, the succession plan, as I always like to call it, for what happens with the money, with the wealth, when we're no longer on this earth. So I think that's important. To answer the question on how we are building wealth, we're really trying to attack it from different fronts, diversify a lot of streams. But real estate is definitely something that we are into, and one of the kind of ventures that I lead there is with real estate. So, with investment properties, definitely something that we have been invested in, are invested in, and even our current house, we try to definitely own as much as we can when it makes sense. So real estate for sure. Obviously, we have our business. So entrepreneurship is another way that we really do believe in building wealth, and because those are two things that you can pass on to future generations, right? These entities that are wealth building machines that you can pass in and involve the family in, which I think is why we really, really like those two streams or those two ways of building wealth, real estate and entrepreneurship. I'm gonna leave it there so that Devon has something to talk about.
Such a benevolent queen she is. Come on, ain't she good to me, Joe? Oh man. But those are the two that I think are our primary streams. Now, we do teach four pathways of wealth: real estate, entrepreneurship, intellectual property, and the stock market. We do utilize the stock market a little bit. We have our, retirement accounts, both from some previous 9 to 5 jobs and from our own business, right? From once you have a LLC that's taxed as an S corp, you can create your own independent 401k accounts or solo 401k accounts so that you can contribute to them, and it helps with your taxes. So highly encourage, if you're at the point in your business where you can convert your LLC to an S corp to give yourself retirement, highly encourage you to do that plan. We also have life insurance. So if anything happens to me, listen, the queen, she might have did it because she got a big check coming if anything happens to me. But again, that was something that we did early while we were young, while the rates were lower because we were young, to make sure that if anything happens to either one of us, the other one is good. But of course, for our children, to make sure that once we leave this earth, our children will literally become millionaires just off of the life insurance itself. So let alone the real estate, passing down the business, which we definitely hope that they take advantage of. They will also get that life insurance money to make sure that the next generation is better. So those are Go ahead.
And I would just say really quick too, man. Number one, I agree with everything y'all are saying. That's a beautiful thing. One of the other things we also kind of teach in our household, man, is just helping our kids understand about building wealth over time, right? So it doesn't have to happen immediately. You can build wealth over time. And I always tell my kids, I said, look, you don't want to, both my oldest and my youngest son, I always tell them, I said, look, I said, it's great that you sign in the back of the check, but you need to be the person who signs the front of the check, right? Like that's the person who you want to be. And so we got a little hashtag in our family group chat, front signers, hashtag front signers, right? Because that's what we do. Like we sign the front of checks, man, because we have that wealth that we have enough wealth, or we're building the wealth that it's going to allow us to grow in a way where we can provide opportunities for other people. And so that's one of the things that we've been fortunate enough to do, even through our own business, is provide opportunities for other people, especially for up and coming photographers and up and coming videographers who want to have an opportunity in the space. We're working with that as well. And so I think it's just, and my oldest son, my oldest son is probably a little bit better with this than my youngest. And my oldest son's like, cool, I got you, Dad. Like, we'll build it over time. My youngest son's like, no, let's make this cash right now. And I'm like, look, man, like, it's gonna happen, but like, just give it some time. Like, there's nothing wrong with building wealth over time. Even though I know you may want that instant gratification, you got to understand that putting in the work and putting in the time is still going to bring forth that result you're looking for. And so kudos to y'all, man, about the life insurance. I be telling folks about that life insurance, man. I'm like, get that life insurance, bro. Cats don't like, oh, I don't want to come out of pocket every month. I'm like, bro, get that life insurance. That's a big help in a lot of different ways. Right. And then of course, obviously, man, those investments, Roth IRAs, stock market, like, go see a financial planner, man. If anybody's listening, you ain't got to go see a financial planner, man. Don't be like, I don't got no money. Go see a financial planner. Just trust me on that. Trust me, it's be the best investment you ever made in your future.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
I'm gonna admit now, I really like the front signer, and we may steal that.
Yeah.
So I'll let everybody know now. If you hear that, if we hear us say that on future podcasts, it came from the Powells, right? We did not create that, but we might end up stealing that because I like that. Be front signers. No, I love that. I love that it's becoming a culture, right? That you're making it cool and within the family to be like, okay, it's one thing to get the check, it's another thing to be employing people, right? And I've heard that, I've heard that kind of mindset before, where it's like, it's one thing to build your business and be giving money for yourself. It's on a whole nother level once you start paying other people, right? And then it's even another level when you start getting benefits to other people, right? Life insurance or health insurance, dental, right? There's levels to this, and I think I like the mindset that you're creating that culture within your family.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Love it. So we've been talking a lot about Black love, been talking a lot about Black wealth. The podcast has been brought up several times. So I just wanted to make sure people got the visual, right? Make sure y'all tap in. Melanated Married Millionaires in the making. Hashtag the M4 show. You can find us on Instagram, find us on the website. And if you're looking at ways to keep this type of conversation going, this type of conversation on building the marriage, this type of conversation on building wealth together, that's what we do every single week with the M4 show. So if y'all like that vibe, make sure y'all tap in.
Go ahead and subscribe to that, man. Y'all subscribe to that podcast. I'm subscribed. It comes right to my phone. I'm like, I can't wait. Hop on those Apple Podcasts, man, and just jump right in, man. I love it. All the content y'all deliver is always great.
Thank you. Come on with the free commercial. Let's go. Thank you. Oh, man. So I appreciate everyone's time today. I wanted to end with y'all just one call to action that you have. Let's say for either a married couple who they just got married yesterday, right? They're on the plane on the way to their honeymoon. What advice would you have for that couple? Or a couple who's been married for 15 years and they haven't been on a vacation for 10 years. Oof. What would you say? Oh, come on, Queen, keep it together. What would you say to that couple, right? So again, either first couple just got married yesterday on the plane to their honeymoon. Another couple been married for 15 years and they haven't been on a vacation for 10 years. What's the advice for either one?
Sinclair, I'll let you handle that. Go for it.
I'll start with the newlyweds. Newlyweds, I would say dream. You're on your honeymoon. I feel like it's gonna feel so good to be in the honeymoon stage, right? You finally got to the point where you're now married, and before all the stressors of marriage and everything start hitting, I would say dream. Like take this opportunity while you're away. Again, I love the fact that she said like maybe on the plane like to the honeymoon because you ain't got to worry about all the life stressors at this point. So just take that time to dream. Think about where do you want to be in 40 years, in 50 years, in 60 years? Where do you see yourselves? And think big. Like don't like really think big and then try to think about, how do we get there? Right. And just spend time during when it makes sense, like during your honeymoon, just man, wouldn't it be cool if we could just travel around and we're 50 years into this marriage? Wouldn't it be cool if, right? Because that's how the plan starts. That's how the vision starts. So I would say dream, like take this opportunity to just enjoy each other and dream.
I love it. I love it.
I would say I would give him some practical advice. Here's a practical advice. Put the phones down. Put the phones down. Engage with each other, man. Get off social media, man. Look. I know we didn't talk too much about social media, but here's the thing, man. Comparison is the thief of contentment. Get off social media. Stop trying to compare your person to somebody else. Just engage with that individual. When you said the whole idea about a young couple and a couple that's been in it for a minute, there have been so many times I've been in a restaurant and me and the wife were looking over at a couple who's young or a couple who's a little bit more seasoned, and they just in their phones in the restaurant, man, not even talking to each other, not looking at each other. And I'm like, man, that number one, that's not gonna be us. And number two, I'm like, if you can't sit across from the person who you said you love and you want to spend time with and you want to engage with, and you can't just have a conversation for 45 minutes, it's like, what is going on, man? Like, you can put the phone down. Put the phone down and invest in your marriage. There's a great ROI when you invest in your marriage, man. I know we said marriage is work, but what I like to say, I always like to say, marriage is an investment, and what you put into it, you're going to get something out of it. You're going to reap a great reward out of it, man, if you are willing to just put in the time and have the wisdom to understand and enjoy good times when you have those good times, and then have the fortitude to have the marathon mindset when you get through when you have to endure the challenging times. So it's like we're pushing past and running past so many important aspects and so many important memories and so many important just lifestyle things within the structure of our marriage and our relationships, and we're missing the best part of it, man, because we have our heads in our phones the whole time. So
put the phones down.
Put the phones down,
after this workshop.
So my advice, and I want to talk to that 15 years couple, right, and try to project if we were in this situation 15 years from now. One, we're thankful to, of course, get it to that 15 years of beautiful, strong marriage. But I would say reflect on the memories that made you laugh and the memories that made you fall in love with each other 15 or 20 years ago. I think whenever we're going through our challenges, or we're going through our stress with business, our stress within the relationship, and I think back to knock-proof windows, and that's an inside, little joke that for us, like, it makes me laugh and it makes me remember like just the fun that we can have when I can think back to us, traveling in Italy, looking over the cliffs of Cinque Terre, eating pizza, like, and drinking wine. It's just like, what? Like the amount of memories and things that we've been privileged to go through are amazing. You just gotta sometimes bring those amazing good memories to the forefront to help you push past some of those challenges and inspire you to dream again. So I would say, again, if you've been married for 15 years, 35 years, 40 years, it's been a minute, just reflect on some of those earlier memories and laughs, and get back to that love again. Okay. Beautiful. So appreciate everybody. I love the queen smile right now. See, I got some points, Joe. It's gonna be a good day.
You're in good shape, man. You're good, bro.
Good. Appreciate everybody for tapping in. Again, make sure you stay tapped in with Play Black Wall Street. Make sure you stay tapped in with the M4 show if you are married or you want to be married. And we hope everybody stays healthy, stays wealthy, and secures the love. All right.
And the love.
What?
Well,
Oh, you
I
were
said
doing
the bag. I was doing the podcast outro. I thought we were okay. My bad.
My bad. Misalignment. But yeah, we're on out of here. Happy Black Future Month. Joel, happy anniversary, 22
appreciate y'all, man.
Please tell Carrie we said the same thing. We wish y'all another 42 amazing years of love, bliss, and resilience.
Appreciate y'all, man. Y'all be good. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
See you later.
Peace. Thank you for supporting the M4 show and our mission to increase the wealth of Black families.
If you received any value from this episode, any value at all, any, do us a favor and give us a like and subscribe on YouTube and Apple, Spotify, anything, all of them, all of them, wherever you're listening, go ahead and like and subscribe.
And after you like and subscribe, make sure you send this episode to at least one family that you really want to see win. We'll catch y'all next time. Peace.